Thanks very much, Stephanie. Welcome to DTECH 2026. It's an absolute pleasure to be on this stage. This conference has its roots all the way back to 1990. Sure, we've had a couple of name changes and many different venues, probably none quite as grand as this, but the thing that allowed this conference to persist for those 36 years is the importance of the electricity grid. There's no more important or perhaps more complex system that has ever been undertaken than what all of you work on every day. And that's not just because of scope or scale, but it's because modern life depends on the grid working perfectly every day. The grid is more than just infrastructure. It safeguards economies, it protects communities, and it enables progress for the modern world. And it really is this last point that I want to get into today. How we manage that transition will define reliability, resilience, affordability, and trust for decades to come. My talk today really centers on that transition, that transformation, not as a slogan, but as a responsibility of all of us. Change begins with the use of data. Data is foundational to what we all need to do. The grid was originally designed with the notion of one-way flow. Let's build enough generation, let's just push the power out to the consumption point, and all will be well. In that kind of environment, information moves slowly. Decisions could be made based on averages rather than evidence, and that world really no longer exists. Today, we expect the grid to be able to manage wildfires, manage EV charging, distributed generation, aging infrastructure, aging workforces, weather volatility, and we've got to manage all of this at the same time in an error-free environment. That sort of complexity without visibility really means unbounded risk. The key to managing that is having data, not just any data, but data that you can trust. And that data can't be a byproduct, it has to be the nervous system of the grid. When you can see local voltage levels, when you can see load at the feeder, you can understand power factors out at every endpoint in the network, you really understand the grid in a much, much different way. You can understand the behaviors across neighborhoods, and when this happens, transformation is possible. The notion of grid edge intelligence that Itron spends a tremendous amount of time talking about investing in and deploying with our customers. It really is that very notion of how can we get visibility and control out at the edge. We've deployed more than 16 million endpoints that are real-time grid sensors and are solving real-world problems, as you'll hear from some of the folks that I have on stage in just a couple of minutes. But really bringing the notion of wildfire mitigation to life. When you look at the data at the edge, you can understand where you have a hot T, where you've got conductor slap, where you do have vegetation interference, and when you can see it, you can take proactive measures to mitigate it. EV charging management, we can bring that type of solution for the good of the grid. How can we make sure that we're not overloading transformers, but we can also take it right down into the home and understand how to solve real-world problems about a level 2 charger on a dwelling with a 100-amp panel. Outage reduction, when we understand precisely what the condition is, where the power is on, where the power is not on, when we can understand exactly what happened, we can have crews that arrive on the scene knowing what to do, be able to operate safely, and get the lights on as quickly as possible. How about emergency preparation and preparedness? The huge ice storm that traveled all the way across the United States here just in the last 2 weeks, Winter Storm Fern, left many utilities in its wake, but those that really had the ability to prepare before that event happened were in a much, much better position. So if you can use an AI model to understand where to stage your crew based on the track of the storm, understand what are the assets that are in place at the time, you have the ability to proactively prepare and deal with the crisis in a much more seamless manner. Digital construction management. The grid needs to be scaled. We have more data centers. We have more onshoring of manufacturing, more electrification of everything. And when that is the case, how do we make sure that we get as-built plans in real time as we're doing the construction and automate that process all the way from the planning stage to the closeout of the project? These are just a few examples of ways that data can be put to work and used as the modern language of the grid. Trusted data tells us what's happening, why it's happening, and most importantly, what will happen next. This is not future possibilities, this is present realities. Of course, there are present realities. Affordability is a real concern and something we all have to grapple with. And we're all starting from a different place. We have different systems, different regulatory environments, different investment paths. Transformation is absolutely not about abandoning what you have built, but it is extending it with intention, layer by layer, insight by insight, decision by decision. Start from where you are, and you can accelerate forward. Technology must be designed to evolve as change needs. The notion of being able to buy a fixed capability and deploy it, amortize it over 10 or 20 years without expecting change in the environment around you, I think that notion is no longer the world that we live in. So how can we make sure we have technology that can be used in the field, grow as we need, modify as the needs around it change? And that capability really revolves around the use of the data itself. When we can build momentum, that creates confidence, and the confidence creates speed, which is important in a rapidly changing world. Here, I think the notion of something like distributed intelligence is really transformational. Instead of sending all the data that you have out at the edge back to a central location, you can deploy an agent, you can deploy an application out to the edge of the grid and take action. Meters become more than meters. They're endpoints. They're intelligent grid sensors. They observe, they interpret, they alert, they control out at the edge of the grid. So you can see local voltage levels. You understand how things are changing, what's happening at every transformer level without actually having to put a sensor on that transformer. All of this is possible with the data that we have. We just have to put it to work. Immediate outage confirmation, transformer loading, stress visibility, all of these are absolutely possible when you put distributed intelligence to work. This isn't the notion of data collection, and it's not even centralization. It is coordination, so it's an entirely different way to think about use of data in the grid. Because the future will not only happen in the control room, it's going to take the combined knowledge of what's in the control room with the knowledge of what's happening and the control capability out at the edge of the grid. And that knowledge can be understood everywhere with decision-ready capabilities. We move then from a world of reactive to predictive, from centralized control to distributed awareness. And the capabilities here are absolutely software-driven, and they will evolve as the grid evolves and modernization becomes practical and not theoretical. No discussion today is complete without some discussion around AI, if we're talking about technology. And AI isn't really the future of the grid because it's already in the grid. It's not going to replace leadership, at least no time soon. It's going to shape how leadership behaves, how it sees, and how it reacts. AI can predict failure. It can forecast demand and power flows, can enhance safety, it can clarify investment. And AI, in all of those examples, becomes a decision partner and not an authority. And here's the part that I think is very unique to our industry. I think every insight needs to be explainable and every recommendation needs to be traceable. And why that is the case is because we work in an industry where trust is vitally important, and we cannot underestimate the importance of trust in the business. And that trust cannot be built by speed. It is built by understanding and showing up with responsible actions every day. AI absolutely can and will be one of the most powerful tools in the toolbox to help with grid transformation. And this is how we have to think about it and how we use it. That said, no technology alone can transform the grid. It's people that do. It's all of us. The most powerful intelligence in the grid today and for some time is absolutely human. Field crews that show up and know what to do when a storm happens. Engineers that design for resilience. Operators that restore communities when they're out. Leaders that balance supply and demand and risk and responsibility. Sure, the technology supports them, but it's the people that determine the success. In my career, the most successful projects that I've ever undertaken are not defined solely by technology, but they're designed by the collaboration of those that you're working with. Grid intelligence, distributed intelligence, it only works because people trust it. It only works because we apply it, and AI works because we guide it. That way, transformation is not a product, it really becomes the partnership. And that really brings me to the conversations that I want to have with a number of key industry leaders. So with that, let me welcome Scott Kreider, President of SDG&E, to the stage. And tell us what's new at SDG&E.
Yeah, well, listen, Tom, I think, this is probably the most exciting time in our company's 140-year history. And I think that can be really said about the utility industry generally right now. So, we're really becoming, incubators of innovation, a lot of new technologies, a lot of new customer experiences. And so I think we're really setting the bar and really moving this industry forward. And so, at SDG&E, we're really focused probably on 3 core areas right now. And I would say number 1, it's modernizing our business. And, as a company that's been around for more than 100 years, we know that we've got to change. We've got to evolve. We've got to set ourselves up for the next 20, 30, 40, 50 years for our customers. I think number 2, it's around safety and its resiliency. Yes, we have beautiful weather here. This happens a lot. But we do get extreme fire risk here. And so we're continuing to make really, really prudent investments in technology and in grid improvements for wildfire safety, as we're also building the grid to handle more EVs. 25% of our customers have rooftop solar today, and really getting ready to go to a zero carbon future down the road. And then finally, and you said it earlier, it's really about affordability. Consumers are frustrated with the cost of everything right now, and so we're doing our part to get our cost of service down even more, working with our policymakers to make sure that energy remains affordable for customers.
Very good. We'll get to maybe the technology part of the conversation in a moment, but I want to take a step back. I spent a lot of time just a moment ago talking about the use of data to solve technological problems, but there's also a part of our business which isn't purely engineering based. So what do you do to increase the use of data, or data literacy, if I can use that term, in the non-technical part of your business?
Yeah, Tom, as we think about this is probably one of the biggest change management initiatives that we're really going to have, and it's really more than just change. Really, we're talking about a culture shift. And getting all of our employees from the executive level all the way down to our line level employees to really begin to embrace technology even more than they've done so, to really embrace the power of data, and really getting our employees to really understand that data and technology is no longer just the domain of our IT department or our data scientists or somebody who can code in Splunk or make really, really pretty Power BI dashboards. This is really about trying to get the technology and the kind of that power of data into the hands of all of our employees. And so, we spent the last couple of years really focused on through our Center of Excellence, doing a lot of proof of concepts, really trying to have kind of a grassroots focus in terms of what's kind of the next thing for us to invest in. And we're going to really take it a step further. We're actually launching this year is a new AI Academy. And it's not just about trying to teach our employees about AI or just the technologies, but it's really that power of the technology and the tools and the data, and to get them really thinking differently. And then we're going to couple that with an AI ambassador program to really have peer-to-peer networking, peer-to-peer conversations. Because what we're finding is that the best ideas are not coming from me. The best ideas are not coming from necessarily our technology leaders, but really it's that grassroots down in the organization.
It's awesome. It's awesome. Let's talk a moment on wildfires. Real problem for many utilities, certainly true right here in Southern California.
Yeah.
Your wildfire center is absolutely a marvel. So if folks haven't had the opportunity to see it and you're given tours, I would absolutely sign up for it. But the thing that I want to talk about is the use of data and specifically edge data to solve real world problems and do wildfire mitigation.
Yeah. Yeah, so, Tom, we had a catastrophic wildfire in 2007 and caused by our utility equipment, and we created an ethos. From that moment forward, our ethos is never again. And so we've been on this journey at SDG&E to make sure that our facilities are not the cause of a catastrophic wildfire. And, we started with one meteorologist and one weather station in our service territory. And really, as we're starting to fast forward, 20 years later, we're really moving from reaction, which is what we used to do. The wind is going to blow, it's going to be dry, what do we do? And we're moving really into prediction. And and the use of technology and data is helping us make much better decisions, faster decisions, and probably a couple key areas. Number one is our AI-enabled weather models. And so we've got about 225 weather stations all throughout our service territory. And so we have hyper-local data now for the past 10 years. And so we've actually trained our AI weather model to have absolute hyper-local prediction. And it's not just it's going to be windy in our mountains, but we know it's going to be windy at 2 a.m. on this particular circuit. So we share that data with all of our first responders, all of our communities, and so we can have a regional response when we know we're going to have an event. I'd say number two is our drone program. Really having drones are taking millions of images of all of our facilities. And when we started this, we had literally dozens, sometimes hundreds of people in a room reviewing these images to see if there's any anomalies on our systems. And now with intelligent image processing, we're able to, again, really train an AI model to look for broken cross arms. Maybe you have a cracked insulator, woodpeckers on the cross arms. It's amazing what you see from above as opposed from being below. So that's really been a game changer. And then finally for us is our AI camera network. So we actually we're blessed here in San Diego to have some absolutely incredible partners and academic institutions. And we actually started with a camera network here in San Diego that's now grown and proliferated, and now there's probably thousands of them throughout the West. And to where we can actually have now these cameras that are AI trained to pick up smoke detection. So we have cameras all over the place. It picks up a smoke detection. It gives lat and long, so we know exactly where that smoke is. It's dispatching helicopters and first responders, and it's able for us to start running our fire simulator models, which we do about 10 million simulations every night with the San Diego supercomputer. So that's really where we're headed in terms of from being a reactive utility to being very proactive with our communities.
Spectacular. The last question before I could spend hours having this conversation, but they don't give us that much time. So let's talk about the workforce of the future, the utility of the future. How can you put the use of AI, data, all the things we're talking about to build a workforce for San Diego Gas and Electric for the years to come?
Yeah, I think sometimes it starts at the top, right? So, we are making this an emphasis. We're making this a priority, and both in our retention of our employees, we are focusing more on training and upskilling and making sure that we want to invest in their future. Right now, it can be really scary for people. They hear AI, they hear all these stories about how there's going to be, so many job cuts and job losses, and so we're really focused on trying to give some comfort to our employees that this isn't about getting rid of jobs, but helping them to make their jobs a lot easier to do and a lot more efficient. And so, that's really one area. But we're also trying to show them what the art of the possible is. As we go through, and whether it's giving 5,000 of our employees access with the appropriate guardrails and data protection, in terms of a large language model, and let them actually try this out. And so they're starting to feel a lot more comfortable. And then as we really think about hiring and attracting talent, hey, listen, the utility sector has not always been the place you want to go if you really want to do cool, interesting, tech, innovative things, but that is absolutely changing. And so I think between what we're doing on wildfire, what we're doing with data and smart meters and predictive algorithms in terms of in terms of usage, that there's no better place to be than the utility sector if you want to have real purpose and a journey, and whether it's on tech innovation or whether it's on climate, whether it's on carbon reductions, this really is the place. But it is going to start with people, and it's really attracting that talent that's going to be absolutely essential to us.
That's awesome. Thank you so much for
Great.
the time.
Thank you very much, Tom.
Absolutely. All right, Mike, welcome to the DTECH stage. So let's start with the notion of how we can help on the affordability crisis. I mean, that absolutely is top of mind for everybody. And how can technology be used to help with affordability?
Well, that's great. Thank you, Tom, for having me here. And I'm Vice President of Strategy and Innovation for PG&E. And my passion is to use technology to make a meaningful impact on people's lives. And let me give you an example of this. This is something our teams are working on together. So for our customers, when they look to electrify, if you go to add an electric vehicle to your home, about half of our customers have a panel at your home that's 150 amps or less. And one of the challenges that faces is when you talk to your electrician, they say you need to upgrade your panel. And now all of a sudden it's gone from I just want an EV to I have a home project to do. And it could be $5,000, $10,000 to upgrade that panel. And then they call PG&E up, and sometimes we get to the spot where the service transformer also needs to be upgraded, and all of a sudden now it's a $30,000 project there, and we have to make a huge upgrade on our side. And so we've been working together, what if we could solve this problem for customers to make it better, faster, cheaper to electrify? And this is where AMI 2.0 comes in for us to use grid edge intelligence to just modulate the load a little bit. It should be unnoticeable for customers to do that, and in a way that we can do it to, one, save thousands of dollars off of an upgrade at home. Second is save tens of thousands of dollars in utility upgrade costs. And then third is the gift of time here. So we can go from having a project that could take 6 to 12 months down to pretty much next day. And so it's an exciting thing to be working on in a way that really drives real impact, not only in people's lives, but when at scale, it's billions of dollars of savings for our customers, which results in real cost and rate savings. It's really important to do right now.
Yeah, just amazing when you start doing that math and extending it out to billions with a B in terms of what that capability is like. PG&E, heart of Silicon Valley for a lot of your service territory, just a really, really unique environment to work in. And one of the things that I really love about working with PG&E and proud to serve you as a supplier is the notion of how you think about innovation. And one of the things that Patty and Jason and you have brought to PG&E in the last couple of years is this notion of an innovation summit. And that is something that's very, very different. It gets to the heart of what Scott was talking about of making the utility a different place to work for young engineers, but also true for startup companies. How do innovation summits work at PG&E, and how can you use those ideas, the things that come out of that, to create larger efforts for the utility?
Yeah, well, so the Innovation Summit that we hold, it really highlights two big things in our innovation model. One is the concept of open innovation. So we know that we're not going to be able to solve all of our challenges ourselves, and so we've asked the world, the innovators, the technologists in the world, to help us solve the challenges that we face here in California, because when we solve it here, we can solve it everywhere. And so with that, we built our open innovation model around really our R&D strategy report. We published that for the world. It's on our website, pge.com/innovation. And we've outlined 67 problem statements in there. And not only have we done that, we've talked about kind of what this means, what the impact can be for our customers if we solve them, and where are those places where we could use AI as well to help solve those problems. And so we've opened up that call to the world, and we get wonderful, great, so many ideas. I think last year we did, in partnership with the Innovation Summit, a pitch fest. We had over 400 ideas come into that. And this gets me to the second part that I love, which is our down selection process. And it could feel rough, could feel different things at times, but we do tenacious down selection. So we went from 400 ideas and went down to 4 that we took forward. So 1%, less than 1% rate of down selection. And that's because we need to work on the things that have impact. the biggest impact that we can have. And it really does two big things for us. One is for our teams internally, that it's a chance for us to work with the startups and the partners in a way where we've given our teams the gift of focus. Because innovation's really hard, and if we try and do that across dozens of things all at the same time, we're not going to have the impact we want to have. And then that leads us to the second big piece, which is the gift of impact for our customers. And the mission we have within the innovation team at PG&E is to deliver 10x returns for our customers. And what that means is for the dollars that we are so fortunate to have for our customers, we return that in terms of rate reductions and cost reductions to the utility customers of more than 10 times. So it's important then for us to down select to those really big ideas that we can go take a swing at.
Yeah. Great process for sure. Problems get solved when we all work together. You heard my take on that in terms of collaboration, but from this innovation summit to how you think about partnerships, I think is also something that's really unique and really exciting about how PG&E views the world. So take the mic and let's talk about partnerships.
Yeah. Well, there's two pieces to that. I mean, one is just me personally. I love partnerships because my purpose in life is to change the world and have fun doing it. And it's so much more fun to do it with partners and collaborators. But then the second is there's real value in this. And this is the chance for partnerships to multiply the impact that we can have. And we're doing that right now with Itron, with others. And the example with Itron is the same technology, so the same distributed intelligence platform and the AMI 2.0 that we first are applying to help customers electrify faster and cheaper. We're now looking at applying to other things, real-time grid awareness, where we're able to pinpoint fault locations and send our crews to the right spot right away, as opposed to, and so getting the power restored more quickly, as well as that same technology can be used to help mitigate potential wildfires. And so that when we know when those faults are, we can get our crews to the right spot as quickly as possible. And so if there is any sort of condition, get it before it's a challenge. So that's really where the value of partnerships comes in, is when we take the one thing that was a point solution and we can extend it to other solutions by using the same partnership, the same platform to make a bigger impact on the world and our customers.
That's spectacular. Mike, thank you for your time and of course for your partnership. And my opening quip there, Richard Donaldson, are you with us? That was not a handoff problem. That was really, are you with us? Maybe if you're paying attention to the weather across the U.S. and you're in the utility industry, so you probably are. He's got a foot of snow back home. So let's talk a little bit about the storm and how you're managing.
Yeah, so I am with you, luckily. I wasn't sure I was going to be here. When I got up this morning around 4 a.m., it was 10 degrees back home in Charlotte, North Carolina. And if I could, we had a big day at Duke Energy, and it wasn't because we had earnings released or any historical achievement, but we set load records in 3 of the states we operate in, and the 26,000 men and women that work at Duke Energy, they did exactly what they do. They got the mail out, and we served every single one of our customers. So I would just like a round of applause. And I want to be clear, I did my part. Right before I left for the airport, I turned the thermostat down to 55, and I left, and I have not heard from my wife all day.
Yeah, okay. Maybe that'll be a follow-up question as to how that went over when the family woke up. But if I take a step back and not talk about thermostat settings, but let's talk about how we can use data to improve the visibility out at the edge. What is Duke's current strategy, and what's your roadmap for enhancing real-time data usage?
Yeah, this is a really important investment area for us, and ironically, it started with our Itron meters. We had a business case to put meters, AMI meters, everywhere in our service territories, really on the business case of not having to drive out and measure meters. It was that simple. But I don't think anyone at the time understood the treasure trove of data that was going to introduce into our thought process. And so fast forward to today, where we literally have dozens of applications that we have built in-house that do everything from analyze usage data from the meter all the way back. Look at the number of intelligent devices we have that you referenced earlier that are on this honking grid is just incredible. And we're pulling all that data back to do a couple things. We're forecasting better. not just near term, but long term. And then we're planning better. So we're looking at, we want to make investments so that we have generation and electricity delivered at the right place and at the right time. And that is a complex set of equations. We have, millions and millions of power flow calculations we run, and just a nod to the cloud. We have, I think AWS is in the crowd, and we have a good partnership with them. We used to run our, I think 20% of our system's calculations, and it took us 6 weeks. And now we run the whole system in about 6 hours. So soak on that for a little while. Go cloud.
Yeah. So let's take a view from the notion that, okay, you're a regulated utility. You've got long CapEx cycles. What kind of strategies can you employ to increase your pace of innovation, but respect the model that you work in? How can we use technology to solve that problem?
Yeah, it's an important question because especially when you look at big capital investments, you are faced with tough challenges like you might run multiple election cycles before you get an asset in the ground. I mean, nuclear is a good example of that. But fortunately, when you're on the AI and the data and the software side, your order of magnitude for investments is significantly less and your time to market is significantly less. So we're able to do a couple things there. We're able to have a smattering of small bets that we're making to make sure we understand where they're going to pay off. But then we can afford to make a couple big bets because they're not really big bets in the grand scheme of things. And so that's allowed us to do a couple things. One is experiment, particularly with AI, but also to socialize. AI is very much a cultural endeavor as much as it is a technological endeavor. And so the more little things we do across the entire enterprise, the more folks are getting their hands on the tech and getting comfortable with it, and we're seeing those ideas boom that you described earlier.
Right. So if we move beyond technical specs, what are the top 2 things that you think are absolutely non-negotiable for utility leaders? What do you need to ask before you adopt a new technology?
Yeah, so there's many. I would say first off, it's got to be secure. Whatever we look at has to be secure. I probably talk to our CISO every single day, and we make sure that before we even write the first line of code, we're thinking about, how could this be compromised? How is it protecting all the data we have access to, including controlling the grid? Second of all is we have to have a value proposition. And, I got into technology because it's really fun and there's some really cool stuff that you can do, especially today. And I think about 10 years ago when I was out at this very conference, I think here, and the face of the utility looks very different today than it did then. And our CEO likes to say we're the cool kids now. And so I think, it's okay to dabble lightly, but if you're going to make a meaningful investment, you have to know what the ROI is on that. And then I'll add a third for a bonus is, I run technology for Duke Energy, and there's a lot of things that in technology we can do on behalf of the business. But what we can't do is be the business. We can't provide that subject matter expertise. And really without that, you're not going to get very far into any use case that you pursue. No matter how smart you are, how technically savvy you are, you've got to have that business subject matter expertise.
Very good. Richard, thank you so much for making the trip and being with us. Thank you.